Isn't it incredible how much of our ancient past remains shrouded in mystery? Lost civilizations, forgotten knowledge. Uh, it really sparks your imagination about what else is out there waiting to be uncovered.
It truly is a profound feeling, the sense that we're only just scratching the surface of human history and that, entire chapters might be missing from our current understanding.
Well, that's exactly the kind of exploration we're diving into today. One of our listeners sent in a fantastic collection of materials, archaeological reports, scientific papers, even some lively online discussions and news articles.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, all hinting at evidence that could potentially shift our accepted timelines and offer surprising insights into our distant ancestors.
A truly diverse set of sources, which is ideal. It lets us examine these fascinating questions from multiple angles, comparing different findings and, well, considering a range of interpretations.
Our goal today is to really dig into this information, extract the most compelling pieces, and see how they might fit together. We want to create those aha moments for you, our listener, without getting bogged down in, overly academic language or overwhelming you.
Right.
It's about gaining a solid understanding in a way that respects your time and curiosity.
Precisely. It's about synthesizing the information from these sources, recognizing where the evidence is robust, and also acknowledging the areas where ongoing debate continues.
Okay, so let's get started. One of the first things that really grabbed me was a report titled Certain Peculiar Earthworks Near Andover, Massachusetts. Describes some ancient structures right here in New England.
Yes, those. What's particularly intriguing about these earthworks is the layout, especially the main wall at Millis. The report points out that the ditch is located on the uphill side,
Yeah.
a feature it shares with other nearby sites like Fort Shawsheen and Goldsmith. And that's not the typical design you'd expect for, defensive structure.
No, not at all. Usually you'd want the ditch facing the potential enemy on the lower ground.
Exactly. It makes you wonder if their purpose was something other than straightforward defense from below.
The report itself says it's preliminary, really just aiming to bring these sites to wider attention and encourage finding similar ones across New England. It mentions an embankment traced for about 300 feet, though in some places it's only like 2 feet high.
Right.
And nearby they found chips, flakes, and spalls, the debris from making stone tools.
Right. The presence of these lithic artifacts, as we call them, basically stone tools, and the waste from making them clearly indicates human activity. And Mr. Willoughby's assessment, based on his examination, that it could be part of an Indian stockade. Well, that's a crucial viewpoint.
Definitely. It's also noted the ditch is on the side farthest from the pond. And originally, the height from the ditch bottom to the embankment top was maybe 3 to 4 feet. Now, their survey identified a Station I as the clearly defined southern end. They can trace the embankment south of this point, towards the pond outlet, but the ditch there was filled in.
Ah.
Apparently, we can thank early American farmers' cultivation for destroying that part.
Yeah, that really highlights a common challenge in archaeology. Later human activities often obscure or destroy earlier sites. The fact that part wasn't even mapped because of farming,
Yeah.
that's lost information for us.
Absolutely. But here's where it gets really interesting. In a trench dug near the fort wall, they found arrow points and lots of these tool-making ships, quite deep down.
Okay.
This led to the suggestion that maybe the native inhabitants even roofed over this pit for shelter, which the report says would be unusual, but, a way to make a warm, dry space.
That's a fascinating idea. A concentration of artifacts like that does suggest it might have been more than just defense, maybe a living space or a focus of activity.
Now, the report tackles whether these were just fire breaks. They argue pretty convincingly against it, pointing out the size of the wall, and especially the ditch depth, seemed way too much for that. Plus, there was a brook, now a pond, right alongside part of it, a natural fire break.
That's a very logical point. The scale implies something more significant than just stopping fire.
They then describe Fort Shawsheen, running along the river for about a mile, usually just 20 to 40 feet from the water.
Okay.
The theory is a village might have been on the land protected by this embankment, especially on a sandy plateau behind the fort. Seems like an ideal spot for an encampment.
Makes sense. Close proximity to the river for water transport. And that sandy plateau sounds like a good settlement spot.
And what's great is they even included illustrations of implements they found. Professor H.W. Haynes analyzed the materials at Fort Shawsheen. They found Wakefield felsite, quartzite, and slate.
Ah, different materials.
Yeah, and at Fort Graham, green felsite from the Melrose Quarry, and this distinctive green hornstone, origin unknown. They also briefly mention Foster's Pond having a deeper ditch and a weird circular depression near Station 4 of Fort Grant.
The variety of rock types suggests either trade networks or access to different local resources, and a deeper ditch at Foster's Pond. Maybe a different purpose or a greater perceived threat there.
Okay, so we have these clearly artificial earthworks. Some evidence points to Native Americans, but then the report throws in a real curveball. Could Norsemen have built them?
This brings us to Professor E.N. Horsford's theories. He was convinced Norse voyagers settled near Boston, along the Charles River, and at Norumbega. He published a lot on this, trying to link finds to the sagas.
Exactly. He thought there was a significant Norse presence that eventually mixed with the local tribes. But the report offers a strong counter-argument.
Which is?
If these huge embankments, some stretching for miles, were inhabited during colonial times, wouldn't the early settlers have written about them? They wrote about lots of Indian villages and forts, which were usually just logs and brush.
Right.
These stone and earthworks are way bigger, different construction.
That's a very compelling point. The lack of detailed colonial records about such unusual structures does cast doubt on a large contemporary Norse population living in them. The scale also seems different from known indigenous practices at that specific time.
So this first source just leaves us with all these questions. Who built them? When? Why? It's a perfect example of how the past can surprise us and why we need to look at multiple angles.
It truly underscores the complexities of interpreting archaeological evidence. It's an ongoing process.
Now, to try and tackle the when part, let's look at our next source. Excerpts on dating methods in archaeology. We've got bits on dating art and historical archaeology.
Yes, these are crucial for understanding how archaeologists build timelines. For rock art, they mention using inorganic pigments, mostly iron oxides, which often implies organic binders were used in the paint.
Right.
And the fact that replicate measurements often have a relatively small uncertainty, maybe plus or minus 250 years, suggests it's reasonably reliable.
They also talk about indirect dating using AMS-14C, that's accelerator mass spectrometry radiocarbon dating on carbon-bearing crusts, like calcium oxalate skins.
Exactly, or organic matter in mineral coatings on the rock art. And calcium oxalate dating itself can give a minimum age for the art.
So you're not dating the paint itself necessarily.
Not always. Indirect dating is key when the art itself lacks organic material. By dating layers over or under the art, or stuff trapped in coatings, we bracket the time it was made. And AMS dating is great because it needs only tiny samples.
Got it. Then, for historical archaeology, the excerpt says the methods are similar, absolute dating, like radiocarbon, and relative dating to get sequences.
But historical archaeology has a big advantage: documents. Written records can help refine the dates we get from scientific methods.
Makes sense? Combining physical evidence with written records.
It's a powerful tool. Documents can give specific dates or at least narrow the possibilities significantly.
So, thinking back to those New England earthworks, if they could find any organic stuff associated with them, like charcoal from a fire pit or preserved wood.
Precisely. Finding and successfully dating organic remains linked to the earthworks would be a huge step in figuring out their age and maybe who built them.
Okay, now we also have a very brief excerpt titled Debating Great Zimbabwe. It's from a journal published just this year, 2025.
Yes. It's really just the title, but it's an important reminder that archaeological interpretation is often full of ongoing discussion, sometimes quite intense disagreement.
Right.
That's a crucial point. Archaeology isn't always about finding the final answer. It's often about building interpretations based on the evidence we have. And those interpretations can change, sometimes dramatically, as new data comes out or old data is seen differently.
Like with Great Zimbabwe.
Exactly. A major, impressive site like Great Zimbabwe, with its huge stone walls in southern Africa, still sparks debate. Historically, there were arguments about who built it, local Africans or outsiders, showing how interpretations can be, well, influenced by other factors.
It certainly does. Which leads us nicely to a BBC News article from February 2025 asking, did Iron Age begin in India? Tamil Nadu digs sparks debate.
This delves into some fascinating archaeology in Tamil Nadu, southern India, ongoing for over 20 years. They've been finding substantial evidence of early scripts, ancient sea trade routes, pretty advanced urban settlements.
Wow.
It all points to the region playing a big role in early civilization and global trade.
But the really headline-grabbing part is the latest findings seem to push the start of the Iron Age in India back another 400 years. They found evidence of iron use in Tamil Nadu dating back about 4,600 years.
That's a significant revision to the established timeline for iron technology there. Archaeologist Rajan, who co-authored the paper, points out these aren't actually the first early iron finds in India. Other sites in eastern, western, and northern India have yielded evidence going back about 400 to 200 years.
And Miss Roy offers a really interesting take, suggesting the Iron Age wasn't just one invention spreading out, but maybe a technological shift that happened, independently in multiple places.
This idea of more decentralized, independent development of key technologies is gaining traction worldwide. It suggests human ingenuity popped up in various places, not always relying on knowledge spreading from one spot.
So the Tamil Nadu findings fit that model.
They could. Potentially pushing the date earlier there suggests South India was also an early innovator or adopter of iron tech, fitting this idea of multiple independent developments.
It really challenges those neat, linear stories we sometimes imagine about how technology spreads.
Absolutely. It highlights the complexity and regional variations in how crucial technologies developed and were adopted throughout history.
Okay, let's switch gears and head over to Europe. We have a couple of really fascinating Smithsonian Magazine articles about European bog bodies. Always so eerie and captivating.
They certainly are. The discovery of Tollund Man in 1950 is a classic. Imagine peat-cutting brothers in Denmark finding this incredibly well-preserved body. Leather belt, skin cap, and that plated leather thong still around his neck, the thing that killed him maybe 2,300 years ago. His skin tanned, body rubbery, but he looked almost like he was just asleep.
Like a direct glimpse into the past. And archaeologists have been trying to piece together their stories ever since. Who they were, where they came from, how they lived, and why they died in these unique places. The articles mention using really advanced forensics like dual-energy CT scanners and strontium tests.
The application of modern science to these ancient remains is giving incredible insights. The scholarly consensus leans towards many being victims of ritual killings, maybe fertility sacrifices, offerings to gods. The bogs themselves seem to have been special places.
Borderlands.
Exactly. Liminal spaces, boundaries between worlds, maybe gateways to the beyond.
That idea of bogs as sacred spots is really intriguing. And the preservation itself is amazing, right? The articles explain the acid and this stuff called sphagnum from sphagnum moss.
Right. It effectively tans the skin, stops bacteria, and pulls calcium from the bones. It's this unique mix that leads to the mummification.
It's a natural preservation process, basically.
A somewhat unusual one, yes. Whether the ancient people knew the bogs preserved things so well is debated, but they acted as natural time capsules.
And it wasn't just bodies, right? They found bog butter.
Yes, this incredibly old, waxy stuff made from dairy or animal fat, plus weapons, vessels. There's mention of a huge 22-pound lump of bog butter from Ireland, maybe 2,000 years old, supposedly still edible.
Wow. Makes you wonder if they knew about the preservation and used bogs for storage, too, not just rituals.
The presence of bog butter alongside apparent sacrifices does raise interesting questions about how these environments were used.
The article mentions Professor Glob's theory that Tollund Man and others were sacrifices to Nerthus, an Earth Mother goddess, for good harvests.
Yes, a very influential idea. He connects it to images on the Gundestrup cauldron, that amazing silver vessel showing goddesses with neck rings and headbands, similar to the ropes on some bogmen.
Those parallels are striking.
They are quite compelling, strongly suggesting a ritual context involving a deity linked to earth and fertility.
They also talk about when the sacrifices might have happened, maybe late winter or early spring, based on stomach contents.
Right. Analysis shows things like barley, linseed, knotweed, but no summer or autumn fruits.
So timing linked to the agricultural cycle.
That seasonal evidence further supports the idea of sacrifices linked to farming cycles and key times of the year.
And the science they use now, taking Lindo Man to a hospital for a dual-energy CT scan. The same tech used in Formula One racing.
It's astounding. That kind of advanced imaging lets researchers study internal structures without damaging these fragile remains. It's completely non-invasive.
In Ireland, Eamon Kelly has a slightly different theory for some Irish bog bodies, like Old Crogan Man and Cloneycavan Man. He thinks they might have been failed kings.
Ah, yes. Sacrificed after specific mutilations like nipple removal. He even links it to St. Patrick mentioning nipple sucking as a rite of fealty in ancient Ireland.
Failed kings. That's a different angle.
Yeah. Kelly's theory links the bodies to specific social and political structures in Ireland then, not just farming rituals. This idea of failed kings being ritually disposed of connects to broader themes of kingship, power, and sacrifice we see elsewhere.
And the strontium isotope analysis is just incredible. Analyzing teeth, leg bones, ribs to trace where people lived and moved.
Yes, strontium isotopes vary geographically. Teeth reflect childhood location, bones reflect more recent years as they remodel. It lets scientists track movement.
And Dr. Fry using hair for Heraldskjær woman to see rapid movement in the last years.
That was a breakthrough. Hair grows continuously, so it can record strontium changes over shorter periods, potentially revealing travel late in life. Strontium analysis is now a hugely powerful tool for understanding these individuals' life stories and mobility.
It's just amazing the detail they can pull from these silent figures. It really shows how different sciences work together to understand the past.
Indeed. The mix of history, archaeology, and advanced science is constantly refining our picture of the bog bodies and their societies.
Okay, now we're venturing into some really thought-provoking territory. Our next source, the Lex Fridman podcast interview with Graham Hancock. This is where we really start questioning some basic assumptions about the timeline of civilization.
Hancock raises a very fundamental and quite perplexing question. If anatomically modern humans with brains like ours have been around for maybe 300,000 years or more, why did what we call civilization seem to pop up relatively late, especially after the Younger Dryas event about 12,800 years ago?
He points out how that date for modern humans keeps getting pushed back 50,000 years, then 200,000, now maybe over 300,000. So, what were we doing for all that time?
That huge gap between our biological emergence and the seemingly rapid rise of farming, cities, complex tech after the Younger Dryas, that's the gap Hancock finds so intriguing.
His hypothesis, and he's careful to call it a hypothesis, is that there might have been an advanced lost civilization during the Ice Age.
Right.
He suggests it was catastrophically disrupted, maybe wiped out, by the Younger Dryas cataclysm, which we know was an extinction event for megafauna.
He presents this as a potential explanation for anomalies and unanswered questions in prehistory, like the sudden appearance of complex knowledge, tech, and social structures in different places after this cataclysm.
He describes the Younger Dryas as a massive global cataclysm, starting suddenly 12,800 years ago. It left a distinct layer in the Earth.
The YDB layer.
Yeah, with evidence of wildfires, soot, nanodiamonds, shocked quartz, melted quartz, all potential signs of a cosmic impact, like a comet hitting Earth. He even mentions Abu Huraira near Göbekli Tepe.
In Syria, yeah.
Where they found evidence of a Younger Dryas airburst, and the site was obliterated, then re-inhabited.
The Younger Dryas boundary layer is well documented geologically, and the evidence Hancock cites for an impact cause is part of an active scientific debate. It's not universally accepted as the only cause, but it's significant research. The Abu Huraira evidence does suggest major environmental disruption around them.
Hancock admits the cause is debated, but finds the impact hypothesis most persuasive. But he clarifies his main point isn't just the impact. It's the possibility of a lost civilization before it, and the impact could explain its demise and the apparent reset in conventional history.
It's important to distinguish the Younger Dryas event, a known period of abrupt climate change, from its specific causes and consequences, which are still debated. Hancock links his proposed lost civilization to this upheaval.
One of his more compelling points involves ancient maps, like the Portolano charts. They seem to show coastlines and relative longitudes quite accurately. But we didn't solve the longitude problem at sea until Harrison's chronometer in the mid-18th century. So could these maps be based on an older, more advanced cartography?
The apparent accuracy of some old maps, especially coasts and relative positions, is a hot topic. The Piri Reis map, which we'll get to, is a prime example. How could they get that geographical knowledge so early? It's a valid and intriguing question.
He also talks about the Sahara being different during the Ice Age, rivers, lakes, fertile land, and the erosion on the Sphinx.
The water erosion theory.
Yeah, some say it looks more like rain erosion than wind and sand, implying the Sphinx is much older, from when the Sahara was wetter.
That idea has been proposed by several researchers, suggesting a much earlier construction date. It's not mainstream Egyptology, but the argument exists.
He brings in Robert Bovall, his collaborator, and they discuss the megalithic construction at Giza the Valley Temple, Sphinx Temple. using massive limestone blocks, maybe 100 tons each.
Incredible scale.
And they point to later granite refacing on the Sphinx, suggesting different building periods, maybe different civilizations or time frames. Hancock even mentions platforms under the pyramids, possibly predating the pyramids we see.
The scale and precision at Giza are undeniable. Those huge blocks, how they were cut and placed. It raises questions about the builders' capabilities. Multiple construction phases are also debated by archaeologists.
When they talk about conventional dating for the pyramids, Hancock mentions the discovery of Khufu's graffiti in the relieving chambers of the Great Pyramid by Howard Vyse.
Right, that's key for the standard date.
But Hancock notes, there's a long-standing dispute about its authenticity. Was it added later? The conventional date relies heavily on that inscription.
The dating is heavily reliant on inscriptions linking them to 4th dynasty pharaohs like Khufu. But yes, as Hancock says, the interpretation and authenticity have been questioned by some over the years.
He then describes the tough descent into the subterranean chamber, 100 feet below the Great Pyramid, highlighting how inaccessible it is, hinting it might be part of the larger underground network.
Those subterranean chambers and tunnels do add to the mystery. Their original purpose and relation to the surface structures remain largely unknown, fuel for speculation.
Hancock then introduces this idea of knowledge transmission from an earlier civilization. He mentions myths of groups like the Souls of Payanekin in Egypt, said to preserve ancient wisdom.
Guardians of knowledge.
He suggests survivors of the Younger Dryas might have settled at Giza. Maybe they're the 7 sages in the Edfu building text, similar to the 7 Apkolu in Mesopotamia who brought knowledge after a flood.
The idea of knowledge continuity, possibly via certain groups, appears in various traditions. That recurring 7 sages motif could hint at a shared heritage, though it's speculative.
He also makes the crucial point that vast areas remain unstudied archaeologically. Only a tiny fraction of sites have been excavated.
That's so important. Our current picture is based on a small sample. Future discoveries, new tech, exploring new areas could dramatically change things.
And this is where it gets really speculative. He suggests sites like Göbekli Tepe, massive megaliths predating farming, with astronomical alignments might be a kind of hall of records.
Encoding knowledge.
Yeah, encoding knowledge in stone and stars, a language any astronomically literate culture could decode, unlike written scripts that get lost.
The alignments at Göbekli Tepe are documented, and its age is remarkable. The idea it encodes knowledge beyond language is fascinating, though unproven. It definitely pushes boundaries about early human cognition.
Ultimately, whether you buy the lost civilization idea or not, Hancock presents 2 interesting possibilities. Either complex ideas, like pyramids, arise naturally in different cultures.
Convergent evolution of ideas.
Right. Or there was some knowledge transfer from a previous, maybe more advanced civilization.
Both scenarios raise profound questions about the origins of complex thought, innovation, and human interconnectedness over time.
Now, the interview also touches on Hancock's sometimes tense relationship with mainstream archaeology. He feels there's academic territoriality, resistance to outsiders, especially those with big platforms.
That dynamic certainly exists sometimes.
He reflects on maybe being too critical himself in Ancient Apocalypse, wants a gentler approach, more indigenous voices. He even made a video refuting points from an archaeologist in a debate.
Interpreting the past can be sensitive. Disagreements happen both within and outside academia. It's often a process of debate and evaluating different views.
He also highlights growing evidence for early seafaring peopling Australia, tens of thousands of years ago, settling Cyprus. This implies ocean voyage capability even in the Ice Age,
which could facilitate movement of people and ideas from a potential maritime civilization.
Exactly. While valuing archaeology, Hancock hopes for more open-mindedness, trusting the public to weigh evidence.
The early seafaring evidence does broaden possibilities for long-distance interaction back then.
He mentions the amazing Amazon earthworks found with LiDAR lasers scanning from the air, revealing complex constructions hidden by the jungle, hinting at sophisticated landscape knowledge, maybe astronomy, math.
LiDAR is revolutionizing things, revealing complexity we couldn't see.
He regrets that some archaeologists seem to focus so much on data, they miss the mystery.
That balance between rigorous science and acknowledging the unknowns is an ongoing discussion in the field.
In a really broad sweep, Hancock touches on Earth's formation, life's sudden appearance, Crick's panspermia idea.
Wow, really broad.
The Neanderthal extinction mystery, despite their bigger brains.
Oh.
Outcompeted, interbred, disease like Kuru from cannibalism. He notes how hominids like Homo erectus explored the globe over 1 million years ago, seeing his own work as personal exploration.
He covers an exceptionally wide range of interconnected topics, from specific sites to huge philosophical questions.
He also gets into shamanism, especially in the Amazon, the complex chemistry of ayahuasca and yahi brews, DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, talks about insights from studying users' experiences, mentions his war on consciousness, TEDx talk being removed, his belief in individual freedom over one's own consciousness. Finally, reflects on the mystery of consciousness itself. Maybe it's in all life, and how humans manifest it uniquely, and the ultimate mystery, what happens after death, referencing ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife journey. It's a lot.
Indeed. Hancock's conversation touches on a remarkable array of ideas, encouraging a wide lens on the past and openness to challenging possibilities.
Which leads us to some interesting Reddit discussions, like, how do we know there aren't even older civilizations erased from history? And the forgotten ancient civilizations iceberg, tapping into that curiosity about lost histories.
These online chats reflect widespread interest in prehistory possibilities and the limits of finding evidence from the deep past. The Erased Civilizations thread notes that while we find basic stone tools from way before the Upper Paleolithic,
Which started around 40,000 years ago.
right, the Upper Paleolithic shows a big jump. Better tools, art, ropes, needles, complex behaviors.
And the argument is, even for smaller, less advanced groups, we'd likely find some trace, making a truly advanced civilization vanishing completely seem unlikely, though maybe not impossible.
Especially for coastal groups now underwater due to sea level rise or in geologically active areas, Dogger Land under the North Sea is mentioned as a potential undersea site being explored.
So the challenge is finding evidence for really old or submerged civilizations.
It's considerable. Sea levels rose dramatically after the last ice age, flooding huge coastal areas. But, as the discussion notes, an advanced civilization usually implies durable stuff. Settlements, artifacts, maybe monuments. It's argued it would be hard for that to vanish without any trace, though traces might be buried or hidden.
The thread also says, apart from places like Göbekli Tepe, we haven't found structural sites older than about 12,000 years, indicating big empires like the later Greeks or Romans, though underwater archaeology might change that.
Underwater archaeology is opening exciting new avenues, exploring sites once on land.
And Yonaguni Monument off Japan comes up here too, natural formation, or man-made from a pre-ice age period, now underwater.
Yonaguni is a compelling, still controversial example. Could it be very old artificial structures, now submerged?
Which brings us neatly to our sources just on Yonaguni news articles, more Reddit. This submerged formation off Yonaguni-jima, spotted in '86, really fuels speculation.
It does. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura strongly believes it's ruins, not natural. A Japanese Atlantis, maybe sunk by an earthquake 2,000 years ago, though others suggest much older, linked to post-ice age sea rise. The biggest structure looks like a complex stepped pyramid rising from 82 feet deep.
And the debate is natural geology or man-made. Some argue the geometric features straight edges, sharp corners, steps look artificial, maybe construction or quarrying.
The regularity and apparent shaping are why some argue for an artificial origin or modification, but geologists point out natural processes like erosion of certain rocks along existing joints can create surprisingly geometric forms.
Then the debate continues, natural processes or human hands?
Exactly. Determining which is more likely for Yonagumi's features is the core of the debate.
It's definitely one of those underwater mysteries that keeps people fascinated. Makes you wonder what else is down there.
Absolutely. Yonaguni highlights the potential for major discoveries beneath the waves, discoveries that could challenge our timelines and ideas about ancient capabilities, especially during times of lower sea levels.
Okay, let's dive into out-of-place artifacts, or OPARTs, via Wikipedia. These are always fun objects that seem technologically ahead of their time or place.
OPARTs are artifacts found where they seem inconsistent with the known tech level or chronology for that context.
Like the Tamil bell found in New Zealand, old Tamil inscription used by Maori as a cooking pot. Origins of mystery may be brought by early Portuguese sailors who got it trading in India. Hints at unexpected long-distance contacts.
The Tamil bell raises questions about historical trade and contact networks, possibly across vast oceans, maybe not fully documented.
Then there are coins from the Kilwa Sultanate, medieval East Africa found in Australia, with later Dutch coins, again suggesting unexpected contact between distant regions.
Intriguing. Suggests previously unknown interactions, maybe indirect trade or accidental voyages.
The controversial finds of cocaine and nicotine traces in Egyptian mummies are also listed. If real, not contamination.
Big if.
It could imply ancient transatlantic contact, which mainstream history usually dismisses.
That remains highly debated. Contamination is a major concern for many scientists studying mummies.
The Nimrod Lem's 8th century BC Assyrian rock crystal is fascinating. Could it be a magnifying glass? Or a burning glass? Raises questions about their optical knowledge.
It's remarkable craftsmanship. Potential optical use does suggest more advanced understanding of optics than typically thought for that time.
And of course, the Shroud of Turin, with its unexplained image. Intense debate for decades about its origin and date.
The shroud remains one of the most studied and debated artifacts globally. Radiocarbon dating points to medieval linen, but the image itself is still debated scientifically.
Wisely, Wikipedia also lists things often called oparts, but with plausible conventional explanations, like the Abydos helicopter carving, or Dendera lamps misinterpreted as ancient electricity.
Right, those are more likely religious or mythological images. It's a good reminder to be critical.
Absolutely crucial. Often, what looks weird can be explained by better understanding history, culture, or even natural processes. Careful analysis and context are key. Now, another map sparking debate. The Piri Reis map. We have excerpts from blogs, Reddit.
Piri Reis, 1513. Compiled by the Turkish admiral, famous for potentially showing Antarctica's coast.
300 years before its discovery.
And some say it shows Antarctica without its ice cap, implying the source maps Piri Reis used were much older, maybe 4000 BCE when parts might have been ice-free.
That's the mind-blowing part. The map also seems to use a projection like Mercator's, decades before Mercator. And the detailed topography shown for inland Antarctica, if that's what it is, suggests advanced navigation, maybe even aerial survey.
These apparent anomalies fuel the debate. The early projection is puzzling. The potential Antarctic depiction, showing features now under ice, strongly suggests Piri Reis had access to very old, sophisticated source maps now lost.
However, skeptical analyses in Reddit threads suggest it's more likely the southern coast of South America, not Antarctica.
Right, the Drake Passage isn't shown, which supports the South America interpretation for some.
The lack of proof either way keeps the mystery alive.
It does. Even if it is South America, the detail and potential projection for the early 16th century still make it a noteworthy, intriguing artifact.
Really makes you wonder about geographical knowledge back then, and maybe even earlier if you used ancient sources. Shows our understanding of cartography history is incomplete.
The Piri Reis map is a fascinating reminder that our grasp of historical cartography and knowledge transmission is still evolving. Unexpected finds can challenge assumptions.
Our next source is Remarkable Archaeological Discoveries That Rewrite History. Basically a list of intriguing finds that expanded or challenged our understanding.
This really shows the breadth of discoveries constantly refining history, like the 26.5 million-year-old giant rhino fossils, Paracerthetherium linksensi in China.
Wow, 26.5 million.
Yeah, giving insights into ancient Asian landscapes and megafauna extinction.
Then there's the poignant discovery of 700-year-old skeletons holding hands in Leicester, England. Found in a lost medieval church, maybe a family bond lasting after death.
Very human glimpses.
And the enigmatic Phaistos disc, unique undeciphered symbols. Maybe a prayer to a Minoan goddess.
The Phaistos disc remains one of archaeology's great puzzles. Purpose, meaning, still elusive.
The article also mentions a Greek sanctuary to Aphrodite found in an Egyptian city. Tangible evidence of Greek presence and cultural exchange during the Seleucid dynasty, 7th-6th centuries BCE.
Illustrates the interconnectedness of ancient Mediterranean cultures through trade, diplomacy, culture.
And remarkably preserved 2,000-year-old parchment scrolls found in a cave, may be preserved by unique, salty, arid conditions. Potential for lost texts there.
Exceptionally preserved scrolls are invaluable potential resources for new insights into past knowledge, beliefs, daily life.
The source briefly touches on persistent claims of an underwater city beneath the Bermuda Triangle. Lots of speculation. Little scientific proof.
Right, skepticism is warranted without strong evidence.
Then, the discovery foundations of a grand ancient church, 131 by 16.4 feet, near Rungholt Shore in England, found using geophysics and excavation.
Shows how different methods combine to reveal substantial past structures.
The Antikythera mechanism gets a brief mention to advanced ancient astronomical tech.
A stunning testament to surprisingly early scientific and engineering skill.
Also mentions the Maya sacred well, the Sanoka Chichen Itza, and evidence of sacrificing a 14-year-old virgin during droughts. sobering reality of some ancient practices.
Offers a stark glimpse into Maya rituals and beliefs, especially in crisis times.
The massive columns at Baalbek in Lebanon, some weighing 880 tons. Incredible scale of ancient engineering.
Colossal. They continue to baffle engineers, demonstrating immense organizational power and technical skill.
Prehistoric labyrinths on Russia's Solovetsky Islands, purpose unknown, maybe elaborate fish traps.
Intriguing mystery.
Also, the deepest underwater cave in Tulum, Mexico, and the fortress of Masada, built by Herod the Great, just shows the sheer diversity of finds.
Each discovery sheds light on different facets: tech, architecture, religion, adaptation to environments.
And finally, a few more Reddit discussions. Little-known ancient civilizations. Interesting, cool underwater archaeology cases topics. And what is the most unsettling archaeology discovery?
These show the wide interest online. The lesser-known civilizations thread mentions Tocharians, Aksum, Srivijaya, Dongsanvanlang, Andean cultures like Chavin, Nazca, Norte Chico, Paracas, Wari.
So much more than the usual suspects.
Reminds us history is much richer than introductory texts often cover.
The underwater archaeology thread brings up intriguing cases like legends and suggestive evidence of submerged cities like Dwarka off India, maybe 9,000 years old. Ties back to our earlier discussion.
The potential for very old submerged sites is tantalizing. Underwater archaeology is increasingly key for exploring these, understanding past coastal life, especially with sea level changes.
And the unsettling discoveries thread gets into darker aspects, graves suggesting live burial, the mysterious mass deaths at Rupkund Lake.
Potential cannibalism evidence and its effects like Kuru, violent human sacrifice in Malche culture, looted burial mounds worldwide.
It's a huge loss of history.
A significant loss, yes. These unsettling finds remind us the past wasn't always peaceful, revealing behaviors and practices challenging to grasp today. Looting is disrespect and destruction of heritage. The thread also mentions recent, disturbing finds like mass graves of Indigenous children in Canada.
Highlighting the need to confront difficult parts of our shared history.
Indeed. It's a stark reminder archaeology isn't just about grand monuments, but the full spectrum of human experience, inspiring and troubling.
These online discussions show the diverse, complex nature of archaeology, the wonder, and the sometimes unsettling realities.
Well said.
Phew. Well, that was truly an extensive exploration. We've journeyed from New England earthworks to Japan's submerged mysteries, delved into European bog bodies, grappled with Graham Hancock's ideas, ancient maps, and just tons of remarkable finds worldwide.
This deep dive has certainly highlighted the intricate, evolving nature of understanding the ancient past. These diverse sources offer so many perspectives, collectively challenging maybe some of our assumptions about human history and civilization.
And hopefully you, our listener, have had a few aha moments, realizing just how much there is still to learn, how many fascinating questions remain unanswered. It really fuels that curiosity about our origins, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The ongoing debates, new discoveries, reinterpretations, they all remind us the story of humanity is still a work in progress. Each new piece can potentially reshape our understanding.
So, for our final provocative thought, consider the immense span of time since the earliest humans. Think about the tiny fraction of that vast history we've actually uncovered. What other lost knowledge, what vanished civilizations, maybe even more advanced than we imagine, might still lie hidden?
Waiting beneath the sands of time or under the oceans?
And how might future technologies, maybe stuff we can't even conceive of now, completely revolutionize our understanding of it all?
Definitely something to keep pondering and exploring on your own.